Hi, welcome to Power of the Network. I'm your host, Tim Locker, Vice President of Broadband here at CBM. Hey, we're back this week with part 2 episode with Zach Molzer from Molzer Development. We had a great conversation. He had a ton to say. So let's get back into the second part with Zach. Where does that capacity end?
Good question. I'll find out soon.
You know, a lot of times in a
right now, 2 projects is the most that I can handle as Zach, I think, and Colin's getting to the point where I'm letting him make those decisions too. If he knows exactly how I think, what my answer would be. Yeah. Just because, again, the way I think and the way that our brand we're trying to build, he's been around me enough to understand what my decision making skills would be, and so he's helping make some of those as well now. But yeah, there's a point where, you know, if we've got 4 or 5 projects going on at the same time, I can't be everywhere. So I think that's a big problem that a lot of CEOs and founders have, is they don't like to delegate. They act like they want to delegate and they need to delegate, but they have a hard time getting with that control. That's how you grow and scale. You know, at the end of the day, you gotta focus on what you're good at. I just read a book on the airplane last week. God, I forget what it was called. It was about delegation and things like that. My buddy John gave it to me, and it was interesting. Where a fallacy of, like, if someone else can accomplish what you can accomplish at 80% of what you can do it at, and it is a fourth of the cost, what the hell are you doing? Like, you know, you have to value your time. And, you know, the funny part is, what do I value my time at? It's hard when you're not necessarily bringing in revenue yet, but there are some things I just don't have time for. Yeah. But somebody needs to be doing them. That needs to happen. So you have to delegate. So a lot of founders don't like giving up control.
It's good that you recognize that. Yeah. Because my point was too, a lot of time the founder usually is the limiting factor at some point, because
they act like they want to grow and do all that, but then they can't actually scale because they're bottlenecked up to them. Yeah. And so you got to be able to delegate. At the end of the day, you know, I don't know how long the timeline looks like, whether it's 3 years, 5, 10. There will be a point though where the only time I'm getting to solve the problem is a true problem, right? Yeah. Where underneath me, there are decision makers that one's dealing with the job site construction and dealing with the finish levels, things like that. But the only time where I get a phone call when there's a true problem is, hey, this is bad. I don't know how to solve this, or I need your approval to do this. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that problem is it's your name.
100%.
Right? So
exactly.
You know, you've got how do you deliver that message and encourage your team to be on the same page, have that same.
They're all incentivized.
That same passion.
You know, at the end of the day, like, that was one of the things I learned from an early age was, you know, you want good people, you want a good team, incentivize them. That's not just money. That's culture. That's environment. That's uplifting them. That's a whole. There's so many different routes to do that, and most people just don't care, and that's why they have bad workers and people that don't care. Yeah. You know, like we don't have hours. If we need to work till 1 a.m., we're working till 1 a.m. And all the people that are on my team, if we have to do that, no one's asking a question saying, well, Zach, it's 5. Like I can't, like, I'm not getting paid enough for this. That's that has never come up, and it won't come up because everyone's taken care of. And they see the bigger vision. They see, like, right now has been the trickiest part to overcome that, because it's like, hey, just wait. But they get it of what's to come. You know, we really haven't even started yet. Yeah. I mean, it's our team right now I turned 25 in March. Annie's 24. So we're both 24. Anna's 22 and Colin's 22. We've got a lot of time.
2 of you combined aren't even as old as I am.
Yeah, we are. We've got a lot of time. And so I think that's the biggest, one of the biggest challenges that I deal with is I want to take on the world. I want to do all these things. And sometimes I have to sit back and be like, dude, just ring it in, chill out. And so, like, I could be doing 6 projects right now.
How do they slow you down? How do they slow you down because obviously you don't, there's a rate at which growth is
One of Colin's
healthy.
jobs is to look at me and say, Zach, think about that. I'd be like, yeah, you're right. And it's just someone just being like, dude, really? We could be, if it was up to me, we'd be doing a lot more projects right now, but that's not the smart thing to do. Let's get these 2 done. Let's focus on that, make our investors happy, pay our lenders back, all that fun stuff. And then we can methodically grow. Most companies that fail, they either don't know how to grow properly or they try growing too quickly. Yeah. We're trying to be very strategic about that. While we do have 2 projects, technically 3 here soon, that are ongoing, and they are large numbers, it's not completely overwhelming because it's not just me. Again, I've got 3 partners on the Aladdin. I've got 1 on the Holtman building. So it's, you give some to take some. But most people don't get that. So blessed to know that. Again, there's going to be some things I'm not perfect. There's things that we regret and things that we wish we could have done differently. But at the end of the day, you just got to keep the ship moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and the risk, I think, how much does your confidence in yourself and your team actually, is it really even risk,
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a risk. Like legally and technically speaking, I have to say it's a risk. But I know that the Aladdin, I know the Holtman are both going to work well because we did enough due diligence and research, and we believe in our abilities to make sure it's going to work out. So I'm not worried about either of those projects succeeding. Those will be good ones. At the end of the day, again, I'm gonna mess up on something. My general rule of thumb is don't mess up on like your first few, and don't mess up on your last one. You can do some things in the middle that, again, don't go to plan. Certain macroeconomic environment happen. Shit happens. You can't plan for. Just make sure, again, basis and everything. You have as many bases as possibly covered before you go into a project, knowing what the downside is and pair that with the upside.
Yeah. I remember
and always have more money.
We, my wife and I bought a farm it was right in the middle of COVID, or right at the beginning of COVID. I remember we were driving to Florida. We were going on a family trip for spring break. We drove down on that Friday. And so we literally had to stop and, e-sign, the deal and sign on the dotted line for that on Friday. And then on Tuesday, we're driving home, wondering if we can even make it back to Iowa. And I'm thinking, what in the world have I just done?
Yep.
Scared to death. But
that was kind of like what happened with the Aladdin. I've got two deal stories. So when we closed the Aladdin, my partners and I, we sat out on Barneyhouse Plaza, which we knew was getting ready to get approved for their new funding to redevelop it and all that. We sat out on Barneyhouse Plaza at 10 p.m. And just looked up at the Aladdin. It was the last time the lights were on. We turned the lights off that next morning, and they've been off ever since, and they'll be back on in June. They'll be really cool lights, by the way. They'll be way better than before. But we just sat out there and we were like, "Are we ready for this?" And we're like, "Probably not, but here we are. Let's take this thing on." So that was a cool night. And then obviously get started the next day, June 1st. And then the other one was we were getting ready to close on the Holtman building. This was a Friday as well. And this was July 22nd, because I know we didn't close till July 25th, technically speaking. July 22nd, we were supposed to close. I was at Title Company. I was there at 10 a.m. Just kind of just waiting for the bank docs to come. Well, the bank had a little malfunction with their system and getting these docs. I had a flight at 4 p.m. I was going to, and everything had to be wet signature because I was the only one that could sign on it.
Yep.
And it had to be notarized. So not just wet, like I couldn't just sign them and leave. That someone's got to be there or whatever and watch me, which is stupid. So finally I'm like, okay, I'll leave. I'm going to go home, pack. I go and pack. And I'm texting with the lender. I'm like, hey, I literally leave here like soon. Where are the docs? He goes, hopefully coming soon. I'm in the Uber on the way to the airport. He calls me and says, hey, we've got the docs ready. I go, you better get your ass to the airport then. So he was like, all right, let's do it. Cause we couldn't close on Monday. Otherwise we would have had to pay for the more interest from the seller. Cause I mean, once closing date's set, you're closing.
Yeah.
And we had all the funds sitting there ready to go. It's just we needed these docs signed. And so they met me at the airport right outside of TSA. And there's a video. I sat on the floor of KCI Airport signing 200 loan docs with the loan origination guy. It was absolutely hilarious. So I joked then after we made a video when I got back of like, did you know that you can buy a building at the airport? Not a vending machine, but you can buy a building at the airport. Here's the story how I think it was a $5.5 million loan I signed on the floor of the airport.
Why is it that it's always at the last minute like that? Why? I mean,
my rule of thumb now, and I've always said this, but it's just happened for my first two deals. I will not close a deal on a Friday. Both deals have happened to close on a Friday. It's just nothing. The problem with a Friday closing is then if it doesn't end, you got lollygag for 2 more days. Like it's just, I like to do ones on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Those are good days.
Have you ever done, kind of tying back to that risk, but have you ever done anything that wasn't risky that turned out great? I mean, don't most of the big things that happen come from a little bit of pain and a little bit of risk?
Yeah, I mean, you got to take some risk. I mean, like in college, I had a software company, a startup with a buddy, and we exited it, but we failed miserably. I mean, we lost a lot of money doing that. We had an exit, so on paper it looks very successful. But yeah, it was horrible. I mean, I lost $50,000. That was not fun. But you learn, you figure things out. And at the end of the day, if you want to be great, then you got to have some level of risk, or you just got to get really, really lucky. Sometimes you can pair both of those together and be amazing. But at the end of the day, there's got to be some level of risk if you want to be great. If you're fine with mediocrity and you're fine just, being stable, then, and that, at the end of the day, I eventually, when Molzer Development's team is 100 or whatever, I'm going to need people like that they are just content. They're fine. They're good people, but they're content with where they're at and what they're doing, and they don't want to take risks. We need human beings like that out there as well, just not founders.
Yeah. So what does success look like for you long-term then?
That's a deep question. People ask that, and I think the only way that I know how to answer it is when you think of Kansas City, and you think of like names that will always be cemented in Kansas City, the Coffin family, like that's a big name, the Hunt family. At the end of the day, there's not many names that you remember 100 years later of like, who are the most prominent people in Kansas City history. My legacy is I want to at least have a chance that my name's in that discussion, for building our city, helping it be a better place, for creating lots of housing, creating these third space environments, for advocating for what's right, and just being awesome. At the end of the day, it's not monetary. I don't need $1 billion. Like, I don't need a plane. I don't need any of that stuff. I'm very content. Does that come along with being in that discussion? Probably. And that's cool as well, but that's not what motivates me. What motivates me is purely legacy. I want people to remember the last name Molzer for a long time. So that's the end goal. I think a statue would be pretty cool somewhere. I don't really want a museum. Just the legacy aspect of it.
I mean, a statue is easy. You can put one anywhere you want.
You could, but like a statue that somebody else pays for, like the city pays for it. Like, oh, we need a statue of Zach somewhere. Like, I don't know, that'd be kind of cool. I think we want to take this thing everywhere. Again, it's not just Kansas City, but I love Kansas City. Born and raised here, and this is home, and it always will be. So I want to make sure that I leave my mark. Like I said earlier, I was put on this earth for a lot of reasons, and I firmly believe that one of them is to challenge the status quo. And I feel like if you know what you're put on this earth to do, it's a disservice to yourself, it's a disservice to your family, and it's a disservice to all of your peers if you don't go out and at least try. So that's what we're doing.
Talk about, hey, that's admirable. You got some big names and big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
But you're off to an incredible start.
We're trying. We're chugging along.
Talk about your childhood a little bit. I mean, you're very unique, and just your confidence and your strengths, and talk about how did you gain that? Was it a lot of that from your parents, your upbringing?
Yeah, a mix of both. My parents have always said, like, I've always grown up and like just been uber confident myself, and always been loud and rambunctious and just crazy and fun, and always wanted to take on the world. I remember my dad was telling me a story. I was like 3, and I was selling rocks at my great grandma's funeral. Probably not the time and place to sell rocks to people, but hey, so
how many do you remember? How many?
I don't know. They were just like, I think I wouldn't classify it as a rock, because I briefly remember that funeral, and it was up in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, and I'm pretty sure they were just like gravel. Like, it wasn't like a real rock. They certainly weren't fancy rocks like geostones or anything. But no, I grew up in Kansas City, over in Lenexa. Parents have been divorced since I was young. I've always had 2 families though, my mom and my stepdad, and then my stepmom and my dad. Both father figures are amazing. My dad has always been a serial entrepreneur. So getting to watch him grow and start his companies, and take risks and do all that, it has been amazing. That's been, a huge blessing to be able to just have that in your life. And then the same thing with my stepdad. He owns an engineering firm. Watching 2 people take risks, but also, feed the family, make sure everything's nice and kosher. And living a good life. Like I always tell people, I definitely grew up in a great world. I was very privileged. I had a good high school education. I went to college. I paid for a third of it. I got a lot of scholarships, things like that. But at the end of the day, I've always been motivated by being great and I don't half-ass anything. When it came time for me to sell knives, again, it was not, all right, let's go sell knives to make money. It was, okay, how can I be the best? For 2 years, I won every award possible. I was #1 office. I was #1 sales rep. I sold just over $500,000 of knives in 2 years. Like, I don't want to be mediocre on anything. Yeah. So I think growing up, of just having the flexibility to, hey, just go and send it. Just go and do that and be great. I still remember I was pretty good at basketball growing up, and I also loved to play golf. And then my 8th grade year, 3rd grade, I was good and got better and all that stuff. But I noticed that everybody else was growing and I was not. So I was like the same height from like 4th grade to like 8th grade.
Yeah.
Going into my freshman year, I was like 4'9", tiny. So I remember my dad sat me down in 8th grade and he said, Zach, you have a better chance of owning an NBA team than ever playing for one. You should probably focus more on golf. I was like, all right, that's humbling. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
And I dropped basketball and started to focus a little bit more on golf.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like having parents and people like that are realistically and supportive at the same time, that's super important. Some parents, they just overly feed their kids with confidence of like, oh, you can do anything you set your mind to. No, you can't. Not everyone can do that. But also at the same time of limiting your kids and being like, hey, you suck at basketball, Zach, you should just quit. Well, maybe he would have been wrong. He was not wrong. I knew that in the back of my head. I just needed someone to tell me that.
Yeah.
So I'm not a dad yet. I can't wait to be someday and, instill similar values of what I had and all that fun stuff. But, I've got a long way to go and a lot to learn, especially from your guys' generation. That's why most of my time is spent with people 40 to 60.
Yeah.
Not just because I'm on the job site, even outside of the job site of when I'm at networking events or hanging out with my peers and groups. Sure, I have friends that are my age, that we can, talk about, drink beers and watch sports together. But a lot of my peers and mentors are older people that I look up to greatly because at the end of the day, I can learn a lot of lessons from them. They can learn some lessons from me. And, you're not going to use all of them, but you can take some of them, tweak it a little bit, and the world's your oyster.
Yeah. Well, and being influenced and being around, different generations, you kind of mature a lot faster too.
100%.
A lot faster.
Don't get me wrong. My first video that went viral, it was us putting up the elevator at the Aladdin. And at the end of it, I go, erected, funny word. That's always going to be funny to me. But when it comes to a certain level of maturity as it pertains to business, I would 1,000% agree. Most people would assume, and I say this and peers can watch it, whatever. Most people, when they meet with them, they assume I'm somewhere between 30 and 35, which is nice. It's cool.
Yeah.
At some point, I think people get I'll get mad about that. People assume I'm older. It's like, I'm actually 30, damn it.
And when I
don't know what age that switches. Right now, hell yeah, I'm 30.
I think when I hit 40, people, there's a lot, and maybe they'd call me a pup.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody was like, I'm 38 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not a pup.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, sure.
You're old, dude.
Exactly.
You're old. And so now I feel it. My body's not old, but I feel like compared to the younger generation and some of the new innovative stuff, my brain's old.
And you know what's cool about that is a lot of my investors, they love that about me because they've said to me, and very clearly, hey, so one of my biggest investors is a developer, former developer, but he's still developing. And he was like, I see you in me of what I was. He goes, I've built what I've built and I'm fine. I'm content. I'm going to continue doing side projects, things like that. But I see in you what I was. He goes, I'd rather give you the money, you invest into it because you are exactly what I was like. You're going to just get it done. I know that you won't sleep until it gets done. I know that you are scared more shitless to lose my money than I am to give you it tenfold. And I was like, that's powerful. And you're right, by the way. 100%. I imagine it's hard to sleep at night with millions of dollars of your own money in a project. I promise you it is infinitely harder to sleep at night when you have millions of dollars of other people's money and you're in charge of it.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Yeah. The other part of that too is, there's an energy that you bring.
For sure.
And for
it's passion, it's enthusiasm. It's
and it's that energy transfers, to even to me just sitting here talking to you. I'm just so I think it's awesome. I think I can't wait to see what you can accomplish.
I'm excited.
It's going to be
just
incredible.
Getting started.
CBM is a manufacturer's rep based right here in Kansas City. We've got territory where we cover from Iowa all the way down to Texas. We cover specifically 3 different market segments, utility, commercial industrial, and broadband communications. CBM is structured differently. We're an employee-owned company. We're ran as an ESOP. That allows us to do business differently. We can cross lines of markets. We can put our people where they need to be and really have expertise in the right place. That's what makes a difference, for our customers and for our manufacturers. If you think we can help you with a product line in the Midwest, look no further than CBM. Find us right here at cbmrep.com. So you've talked about the Strengths Finder.
Yep. That was one of my majors in college was Clifton Builders Management. Had loved that institute. It's amazing. Shout out to Timothy Hodges, best professor and human being I've ever met in my life.
Okay. Top 5. Achiever.
Yep.
Competition.
Yep.
Self-assurance.
Yep.
Communication. Strategic.
Yep. Bingo.
I mean, competition's obvious.
Yep.
What is it about competition that drives you?
There's no second place. You're not the first loser. I mean, you're a loser. Like you win or you don't.
Does it drive you nuts? The everybody gets a trophy type of.
It's stupid. Like, no, we don't do that. I joke with our team. I was like, if you fail, I'll make sure everybody knows you failed because you failed. Not going to humiliate you, but you get my point. There's winners and there's losers out there. Be a winner. You're not going to always be the winner, but learn from when you're a loser, and always try to be great. Now, at the end of the day, like with development, there's not many metrics like that you can be like, oh, did you win? Did you not win?
Yeah.
But example would be is this. We are one tiny little micro goal is I want to win every single award possible for when the Aladdin and the Holtman open up. I want to win Adaptive Reuse Project of the Year. I want to win Multifamily Project of the Year. I want to win every Project of the Year. I want to win all those. I would be sad if we don't, because that would, not that it means less of us. It's just we're trying to do things differently. And so, so competition, but just in anything I do. I mean, if I'm playing darts with my buddy, playing Golden Tee, playing pickup basketball, or if I'm playing golf, like I want to win. That's just, what's the point of playing if you're not winning?
I remember we had a CBM open house. It's been 15 years ago. It was our 50th anniversary open house. And myself and Rick Brethorst got into a cake selling competition.
Yeah. So like right now we're raising money for New House. My buddy Drew and I, and like last year we got second. We raised, I'll mess this up, something like 25,000, I think. And this year we are not going to get second. Yeah. Because I was like, this is stupid. We lost. We did not win.
Yeah. Anything.
We're raising money for a good cause, obviously. Like that's awesome. We raised 25 grand, but let's win.
It's funny how the smallest thing can turn into a competition.
100%.
Like, totally. Which is probably what you love about golf.
Yes. That's why I like to gamble when I golf though now. Because I used to play competitive golf. Now it's not necessarily competitive. I feel like it's got to be some other reason. Like, don't get me wrong, I love to play golf with the buddies and all that, but I like it more when there's something that we're all trying to go for.
Something on the line.
Something on the line.
Yeah. Gotcha. Talk about the other ones. What
the most uncommon strength in people's top 5 is self-assurance. That is back to my confidence. That is basically unwavering confidence in your ability to execute, to lead a team, in your vision. For whatever reason, it's just the most uncommon top 5 strength. And that's the one I resonate the most with, because I feel like that can help guide me and really speaks to who I am. It's not arrogance. It's just, I know what I'm doing. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to find the right people to do it. But I know that I can figure it out myself with other people. I know that I'm right.
Well, that's the one thing that sticks out to me about your generation too is, growing up with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Even still, a lot of times it doesn't even cross my mind to just Google it.
Yeah.
100%. I'll ask somebody. I'm like, hey, what do you, and I mean,
for sure.
You're just
with
like,
development though, and things like that. There's things we can't Google.
Yeah.
Like I remember, last week where Colin was like, hey, we have to fill out this thing. I was like, I haven't heard of that before. He's like, neither have I. We kind of look at each other, and it was that look of, cool, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh no, I don't know how to do that. Wave our white flag. Here you go, bank. Here's the building back. We don't know what we're doing. No, you figure it out.
Yeah.
And we figured it out. Easy. It took 5 minutes. So that one I love. Achiever, obviously just wanting to be the best. Overachieving, underachieving, just always striving for greatness. Communication, I like to talk, clearly. Yeah. That's just like one of my favorite things to do. I like to hear my sound of my own voice, as my parents say, which is funny because I really don't. But I don't know. There's always a lot going on in my mind. Sometimes I just like to chill and sit and think. But a lot of times I feel like I have something good to say or some sort of added value to the table.
Yeah.
And then what was the last one? Strategic. That is, I think, the most important as it pertains to development, because in development, it's not like algebra, or it is like algebra. That's why I liked algebra, not like calculus, because in algebra, there are 100 different ways to get to the same answer. That's like development. There are 100 different ways to skin the cat. There are 100 different ways to get to the same thing. At the end of the day, you have to get there. And so like being strategic on the job site, I don't know I know enough to be dangerous about like HPC and plumbing and all that stuff, but example would be is the pros are out there at the Aladdin. Okay, they need to get a pipe from here to here, and they're spending a week trying to figure it out. Like, God, where do we go? Like, because again, the building, it's old. There's columns, there's concrete. Like, you can't just run it straight. And then I was like, hey, what are you guys? They're all like figuring out and everything. We were getting delayed a little bit on this. I was like, well, what are we trying to figure out? Like, we need to get this there. And they kind of dismissed me. I was like, okay, well, what if we did this? And went through this went up under the ceiling in the basement, but in this void, and then over through there. They'll kind of look at me like I'm crazy, and they're like, that'd probably work.
It might work.
Why do you think of that? I go, well, I've been in every nook and cranny of this building. I go, the other pro is you guys are thinking about this very like from a design standpoint and functionality, but I'm thinking of it naively and as an outsider of I don't know. You told me you need it from there to there.
You're not restricted to that old box and the old rule.
No, like I don't know anything about what you guys are talking about. You just told me you need to get from here to here. Well, there's a route. And it worked. And they're like, that's awesome. It's like, it's little things like that, being naive and asking the right questions and just speaking up. My top 5 all go together. I know my number 34th strength, which is not a weakness, just not a strength, is harmony. Harmony means people that have harmony, they like to please other people. They like to make everyone happy. And they don't like conflict. I'm the opposite. I love conflict, not because I want to poke the bear or I want to, ruffle the feathers, but my opinion is with conflict comes solutions. There's no such thing as conflict without a solution.
And conflict doesn't necessarily mean drama.
Correct. Conflict doesn't necessarily mean drama. It doesn't necessarily mean a problem. It just means conflict. But again, if I like solving the problems, and so that's why harmony
conflict creates a problem that you can then
you can solve. Because you have to. You're going to solve the problem. If you can't, even problems that you can't solve are still solved. The answer to that is just oh shit. Yeah. It's just like that can't be solved. Oh no, we're screwed. But that's still a solution.
So
it's not the best solution, but
for what little I know about that whole strengths deal, I've been told that the woo is highly sought after.
That's number 6 for me.
And that's winner of others.
Yeah.
Which clearly you've done. You've got people tripping over themselves to come work for you and part of being trying to be part of this movement.
100%.
So, but it was brought to my attention that
woo's a big one. It's weird because like I don't care about winning approvals of others in the sense of like, if you don't like me, cool. I don't care. If you like me, cool. That's awesome. I'm not trying to please other people because at the end of the day, people are going to like you. People are going to hate you. Like that's just life.
Yeah.
But if you can naturally just be fun and outgoing and be your authentic self, people will like you. Like I'm sure. I mean, you go look at some of the comments on our YouTube stuff. People are haters. People are going to talk crap all the time. I don't care. Like there's a reason.
Do you even get into?
There's a reason they're the ones typing on their laptop or their phone and saying hateful things, and I'm the one building in our city. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, you can't. It doesn't matter. That's why when people are like, "Oh, well, they said something. What if someone says something bad? Like, I don't want my friends to think I'm weird." I promise you, you're not that important.
Yeah.
No one's that important. Like, no one. People are very selfish. They just don't care.
Yeah.
So if you just start thinking in that route of
humble
just do
yourself,
it. Humble yourself. You're not that cool. Like I was telling our team the other day, I forget what was happening. I don't know, we were doing something and Annie called me and she was like, well, can you do this? I go, I mean, I could. Like, why? She goes, well, I mean, this person's asking for that. I go, Annie, we're not that important. I go, it's fine. Things can just marinate and wait. I go, no one's that important. What's an example? Better one is I like to pride myself by when I get an email outside of the fact I'm on a podcast right now, I like to respond, but then like first 30 minutes, like my inbox is always empty because I want to respond, whether it's a, hey, I'm not interested or, whatever it may be. Sure. I like to respond quickly. My counter when people like don't do that, it's people like, how are you able to respond that quickly? How are you able to do that? Because no one's that important to just, I get back to you in a week. You're not that important. Like if you're responding to them or whatever, you might not that be important to them, but no one's that busy. Like people are very busy, don't get me wrong, but some of the busiest people I know respond and have the best communication skills because they value their time. Therefore, they're going to value yours. Yeah. That's why you show up on time, you're punctual, and you're efficient. Someone sent me an invite the other day for an hour-and-a-half meeting. I responded back, said, no, I'll meet with you. I've got 30 minutes though. What are we going to talk about for an hour-and-a-half? Like, I don't need that. I'm happy to meet with you, but don't abuse my time. And I want to abuse yours. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
100%.
Time for me was always a big one. I've just how I was raised. You
Yeah.
know, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're
Yeah.
15 minutes late.
And like right
you
now,
know,
the
so.
beautiful part about me being young is my time I have, again, 7 to 9. So I have more hours in the day. When I have kids, okay, I'm going to go home and be with my family. Like that's just how that works. But
Yeah.
you know, we're pouring the foundation right now for a large, massive structure of what Molzer development will be. And I believe that the foundation is going to be poured over the next, it started 2 years ago and it's going to continue to get poured and poured.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of concrete to pour over this big building that we're building that is Molzer development. And so I sacrifice some things in your 20s to know that things are going to be pretty cool later in life.
Yeah. Well, that's how you get ahead, frankly. You know, doing it young, accrued interest,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
starting now, and it's not just, you know, what's in your bank account, but just in life, if you're
Exactly.
willing to get out and get after it and get it going, like,
Amen.
so that's awesome. I can't thank you enough for,
this was great.
coming in and talking
100%.
to me. And I'm looking forward to you know, what you can do in the future.
Let's do another podcast live at the Aladdin when we open up.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
That'll be awesome. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Love it.
Awesome. Just want to say thanks again to Zach for joining us today. Your energy, your passion, it's contagious, you know, and it passes along to the people around you. So thanks again for what you do. We look forward to seeing you and your company grow over the next few years here in Kansas City. Remember, if you need help with a project or looking for representation for a product here in the Midwest, look no further than CBM. You can find us right here at cbmrep.com. Give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you'd like to see on future episodes here on Power of the Network. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, we'll see you next time.